Hola, good day. Que pasa? I think we need a theme song, Coop.
Oh, you got one. I remember to play it
Yeah,
though.
yeah, let me see. Let's see. There we go.
I'm gonna see if I can get this background noise turned down. I'll be back in a sec. Philosophy, Claiborne and me, COP. You, me, and Claiborne, coffee and philosophy.
Oh man, Coop, you're already triggering Ron. We're getting started really early tonight.
What did I do this time?
Apparently, you're not green enough for him. Yeah. So,
Fine.
yeah. Welcome, to the shit show. Shamalama ding dong. Buzzwords. What's up, Coop?
Yeah, giddy up, dingo babies, all that kind of stuff. Do you remember the theme song?
Yeah, I played it. And the people heard the thing. I think we're official now. So yeah, I guess we can do the thing.
Cool. Giddy ups, dingo babies, shrimps on barbies, all that kind of stuff. Australia's burning. It is what it is. What are you going to do?
I've been trying to figure that out. Like, how do you even burn upside down?
Well, all the smoke goes everywhere else, which if you, incidentally, if you'd like to talk to New Zealand, they have been getting all of our smoke. That is how much smoke we have been producing.
I'm guessing New Zealand's disgruntled, right? Like, did they write like a sternly worded letter?
I think they're just like borderline gruntled.
Okay, so they're not disgruntled. They're just gruntled a little. Okay, I
Yeah.
got you.
Yeah.
Well, California was doing that to us. Like they had people several states away getting hit by the smoke. I mean, I don't think we get it as far away as I am because that would be like 2,000 miles or so. But yeah, like a lot of different states have been getting the. I want to say like they said like over in Colorado they saw the smoke. So yeah, apparently like when you get a big enough fire going, like the smoke will just like go for a while.
Yeah, well, I'm sure Patient Zero will probably end up getting us the actual numbers, but New Zealand ain't that close to Australia for those that don't actually know. Um, and I'm just trying to pull up the image of Australia on fire because pretty much we're completely on fire now, as far as I'm aware. I think the whole of Australia is technically on fire. There was some talk about when the Amazon caught on fire and the amount of forest that they lost and these bits. They were talking about like the hectares lost, that kind of thing. And Australia's considerably more being lost. However, as far as the rainforest is a lot more vegetation and that kind of shit compacted, a lot more life compacted into each hectare, as opposed to Australia, where look, we've lost like national parks and that kind of thing, but essentially this is farmland and things like that as well, and it's not as densely populated as what the Amazon is. So like even though look, the numbers are considerably higher, the losses would have to be something you'd want to compare it a little bit differently. You know what I mean?
Yeah, this is reminding me. I guess this week's kind of like slightly odd, scary fun fact. Apparently, there are more kangaroos than there are people in Australia. Like, how does this work?
Look, this is something I was saying before. Just allow me to crack open my beer. Since Patient Zero didn't help me choose what I was going to drink tonight, I have chosen my own stuff. I'm drinking a Tooheys. I'm also drinking a cider, and I'll be moving on to Jim Beam a little bit later on, just so those that those that want to know what I am drinking. They're not our sponsors officially, but if you want to give us some stuff, I'm willing to take it. Anyway, kangaroos. Yeah, I think it was on Ron's show earlier where I did play guitar, even though he will deny it. I was mentioning that kangaroos are regarded as a pest, and pests tend to, be called that for a reason. Usually because they're in numbers, they do bad shit, they're a nuisance, etc., etc., etc. So these things taken into consideration. Yeah, we've got fuck tons of them, and they are just like running wild. They're like rodents, essentially. So yeah, it's quite a few of them there. You're right there. Yeah, allow me to open this drink. Job done.
Yeah, it looks like Little Scribe's like getting like a little premeditated on us. So she's like muting her mic so that we can't hear her snoring later. I mean, that was half the fun of the other show. Like, come on.
Yeah, well, you definitely got a good laugh out of that. At Little Scrub's expense. So I can understand the whole putting things into effect to prevent that from happening again.
Well, I don't know if you could really call that like at like Little Scribe's expense. It's more like at her sleep's expense. You know what I'm saying? Because like apparently like her sleep is just like hilarious.
A sleep comedian in the making.
Oh god, that would be like
take this show on the road. Little Scribe, let's go.
Could you imagine like just how fucking terrible like that show would be? Like, I mean, like looking at the shit that comes on TV nowadays, like I could totally see them trying this. There's gonna be a show where they like, it'll be like Eric Andre style or some shit where they're like going around like out in the street, like like basically like searching for her, and like they like show up in the middle of like Central Park and she's like snoring on a bench with like all these people standing around, like what the fuck's going on, and then like they see the camera and everybody like busts out laughing and it's like that's the stick, like god that fuck.
Well, hey, look, I've seen worse shows on TV. So like, why not?
Yeah, I mean, like that's what I'm saying. I think that's the sad thing right there. There are like literally worse shit. Got reality TV right now. Dude, we should discuss the philosophy of reality TV.
Man, we're going to need a few shows for that, and a few examples, essentially, because there's just so much crap out there. There's too much to deal with in one show. Essentially, I feel.
Well, I think the problem, or like the biggest problem maybe with this is we have like all of these TV shows now, right? They're supposed to be like quote unquote real life, and like here's the thing, like one, it turns these people into celebrities if the show gets any popular at all, right? So then it stops being like your day to day quote unquote real life. So that's like one aspect of this thing, but two, it's like also you can't have quote unquote real life while you're acting like this, right? Because it's all contrived to some extent. And for as much as like so many of these shows will say like they're not scripted, blah blah blah, I mean, come on, dude. Like so much of this shit is scripted. Like this is not how people's like normal day to day life goes. Like this it doesn't make sense. So like it puts all of these like unrealistic expectations on the people, like well damn, this is how I'm supposed to be living my life or whatever, but also to me it's just like got to be like the most mind numbing, just awful fucking form of entertainment that I've ever seen. And I'm sorry if you guys out there like watching your fucking I don't know, like loving hip hop Atlanta or I don't even fucking know, like 90 Day Fiance or whatever. Like this shit just it like makes my brain hurt that this is like what so many people want. Like this just like empty, vapid, like just destroy an hour of my life so I don't have to worry about existing and doing anything. Like that's how it strikes me.
Yeah, well, look, there's something that you mentioned there in regards to, essentially after the first season or whenever they, start making, getting a bit of traction, making a bit of money off the show. it ceases to be what it was. I mean, you can look at this with Jersey Shore. I mean, like that's, I mean, just a bunch of dickheads that essentially got given a bunch of money and became more dickheads. But anyway, the one that comes to mind is that Honey Boo Boo show. Like, I don't know exactly. Like, I've never watched it, right? But I do understand that I've watched a few documentaries in regards to reality TV and that kind of thing. And the thing is, like, they would trailer park, and then they got so much money they weren't trailer park anymore, but they were trying to still be trailer park. But you could just see the complete difference from, you know, when they first started off like actual trailer park people versus when they had a lot of money and they were, you know, doing that kind of shit. I was like, oh, all right, no worries. Another one that springs to mind is I think it was just like 2 or 3 days ago. I watched, and I know he's your favorite guy, Clay, Tony Robbins. I watched this special, if you will, on Netflix. I'm all about documentaries, you know me. And it's called "Not Your Guru," something along those lines, right? And you know, I've seen some of his stuff before. I've seen what he's done, and you know, he's jumps out in front of a crowd and he's all pumped up and he's like, "Say hi," and yeah, and like all these different bits and pieces. And then you know, he asks people to put their hands up and goes out there and you know talks to someone and touches them, right? Not like, you know, show me where they touched you on a doll kind of thing, but touches people, you know, like, you know, speaks to them and really, you know, hears a problem and dissects it and, you know, helps them out and that kind of thing. But I'm watching this whole thing, and it's kind of like behind the scenes and all that kind of crap. And they're vetting the audience and that kind of thing. And they're kind of like, you know, people are working together in groups, and they have to present their work to a group leader. The group leader presents it to staff. Staff presents it to Tony Robbins, and you see sort of like the interaction, and he's like, you know, so who's got the good stories, you know, and kind of thing. And they go like, oh, well, you know, this person was raped. They're trying to deal with that, and that's something they're trying to get over. And this other person over here, he's trying to commit suicide. Like just like 2 weeks before the show, he was trying to commit suicide, and like all of these seemingly random interactions that you see in, you know, the seminars, the shows, and all those kinds of things, they're all constructed. They're all put together, and you see the people in the crowd are crying, and there's such an emotional content. And when he's like, the thing that gets me is kind of like when I'm watching him do his thing, his reactions, it's kind of like he's trying to make it look as, and like for some people, I'm sure they believe that it's genuine, like genuine shock and genuine, like, you know, oh, wow, like I didn't know. Like, fuck off, man. Like, you got given a script, told what the person went through, you picked them out of a fucking crowd. They literally showed you a picture of the person so you could find them, right? So you ask these random questions. Okay, who's got something they want to deal with? Who's has some trouble? You know, these people are putting their hands up, and he's looking for this person, right? Like, it's so scripted, it's not funny, but somehow we manage to eat it up as though like it's you know, a show that's happening spontaneously in front of us. It's all unfolding before us, unscripted bullshit. It's all scripted, and that's kind of like where we have that edge there, where it's like, well, is it really reality TV or is it constructed reality TV?
Yeah, I think probably through like various comments in the past, I think at least you, if not everybody here, would probably understand my personal opinion of old T Rob. But you know, like one thing I find interesting is the whole like concept, like not a guru thing. Like if you to me, it kind of feels like this is like the hipster thing to do right now. Like try to be a guru, but like claim, you know, like don't have gurus, etc. And it's interesting to me, right? Because it's something that like I like deeply and firmly believe is like we should not have quote unquote gurus, right? Like I feel like we have to know, and we have to like understand, we have to like do the self discovery and figure out and like break down our own beliefs. Like I feel like all of this is a very personal experience, right? And you know, it's interesting because like Alan Watts, Terrence McKenna, like they say similar things, right? Like the whole point is basically like don't have a guru, you know, like be your own guru. So you know whatever you want to call it, like it means the same thing. But like it's interesting because like whenever I see like what Tony Robbins does, whenever I see like the shit show that he puts on, like if you read his stuff, to me it feels so fucking disingenuous. Like this is a motherfucker that wanted to go out there and get fucking rich selling people bullshit. Like I don't know how else to put it. Like this is how it reads to me. So personal opinion. Good luck if you want to try to sue me. Whatever. I ain't got no money anyway, motherfucker. But yeah. So that's the thing to me, right? Like you can basically like tell when somebody's like, I mean, at least I feel like when somebody's being like authentic and like genuinely believes this and is trying to like actually spread that message, and when somebody's like, disclaimer, I'm not your guru, but like they're gonna sit there and try to like tell you how to live your life, and yeah, like just like what you said, like this scripted bullshit. It like really like blows my mind that like this dude will like sell out fucking like amphitheaters so people can go and just like feed into this bullshit. It's crazy to me, right? I'm like, dude, if you took like that same, like let's say it's 2 hours, right? Like however long you would be going to have this dude like not preach to you, and just like did some fucking self reflection and like tried to work on your shit, I feel like it would honestly be so much more productive. And you know what? It'd save you a lot of fucking money. But it's like we live in this culture where it's like people want you to like give them the answers, tell me what to do, like be a sheep. And it's just, God, dude, it's frustrating, right? Because it's like the answers are so fucking obvious. So it's like you can try to tell people, but it's kind of like that's the thing in itself, right? Like unless people are coming to you asking for help, like seeking this kind of like guidance or advice, then whenever you're going out there and trying to like spread this shit, you basically are the quote unquote guru because you're pushing your agenda on them. I feel like in my experience, the only time that anything I've ever had to like say in these regards to another person has ever had like any kind of impact is whenever they either like seek me out for it, and even that's dicey because sometimes people are just wanting you to tell them what they want to hear, etc. But yeah, I mean it's got to be voluntary, right? Like if you're not looking for this, if this isn't what you want to do, like it's not gonna stick. It's just some guy fucking telling you shit and it's going in one ear and out the other, right?
Yeah, exactly. And particularly like for me, the psychology background and that kind of thing, watching this unfold, I felt so uncomfortable watching this take place. Um, and because the thing is just like, okay, I've talked to Ron a little bit in regards to psychologists, and you can't call yourself a psychologist unless you're registered and all these bits and pieces and like that, because you're fucking with people. And this is kind of like, despite the argument that we're actually having of, whether there should be regulations, and regulation only takes things from people, doesn't give things to, like, fuck that. I don't care about that. Like, yes, there's merit to those arguments, but that's not what we're talking about. What we're talking about here is somebody who is putting themselves out there as, like a life coach and that kind of thing, with the kind of like the background enough to know how to manipulate people and that kind of thing. It's kind of like a psychologist has the ability to do some hardcore heavy duty shit to people, right? Because they're getting into your brain, they're trying to manipulate things, they're trying to social engineer things, and depending on their intent, like, again, something we were talking about as well, the path to hell is paved with good intentions. Now, yeah, I'm pretty sure Tony Robbins isn't going out there trying to fuck people over. I mean, he thinks he's doing good stuff, and whatever that is whatever it is. But we have to be careful of what we're doing. We have to be aware of what we're doing, because it can be detrimental to someone's existence, particularly when you're talking about some very hardcore situations like suicide, like rape, like a whole bunch of different things that he deals with. That's just in this particular special, right? And look, I'm not going to recommend it to watch as in like, watch it, it's going to change your life. But if you want to see the kind of manipulation that can happen, and this kind of like power structure, because people hand over their power. Oh, it's Tony Robbins. He's so special and talk to so many. He's so influential. The president helped President Clinton. Incredible, right? So people are going like, okay, this person can change my life. So I'm going to hand over like my free will, anything else that I need to interact with this person. And if you look at the sort of like the show itself, there's people that have like sold everything that they own to go to the seminar, right? You got to pay $5,000 to get in. Plus, you got to get there. Plus, all these bits and pieces, right? And I'm like, dude, that's fucked, right? Because these people are, clearly. I'm trying to select the most politically correct way to put it, right? But they've been through some shit, and they're seeking guidance, right? And to basically have an interaction with this person, you need to sell everything that you own, sell your soul, and then go and interact with this person and hope that you're going to find your way through. When, like you were saying, like realistically, the answer is within us, right? Tony Robbins isn't special, and I don't mean that in a like really bad way, but like um, any psychologist, any real psychologist will tell you that they don't really do much, right? They kind of like just help you find your own answers. They don't tell you like you need to do this and you need to do that. And if you do actually watch this special, Tony Robbins tells this girl to break up with her partner, and she does it on the fucking show. And I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, you can't do that. Like, you can't do that. And it's not over anything full on. It's just like they're a mismatch, whatever. Anyway, you can't do that. That's not what you're supposed to. That's their decision to make, and it's not right. So, like I said, as somebody who's been trained in sort of like psychology and what you're supposed to do, what you're not supposed to do, I'm looking at this and I'm sort of like covering my face, going, "Oh my fucking god, I can't believe this shit!" And this person gets paid millions of dollars to do this kind of shit, and I feel that it's taken advantage of people. That's what the feeling that I get in my stomach is that it's someone taking advantage of another person on national television, and they're making not only are they making money from the seminar, but they're making money from the documentary as well, right? So I'm just like, yeah, man, this is the kind of thing we need to be aware of and careful of, because this is kind of like where it can turn bad, right? Because if like I said, I still believe that Tony Robbins has the best intention with what he's doing, but if he had ill intention, he could really do some damage to people, and you have to be careful of doing that. That's something you need to be aware of.
Yeah, and I mean, okay, here's what like really frustrates me is like some of the shit he's saying is like legit, right? Like there's some like legitimate messages in there, but here's the thing, like I promise you, anything like quote unquote wise or life changing that you can spend all this money to hear him say amidst like this fucking smorgasbord of bullshit. And I promise you, I can point you to sources where you can like hear it for free. Fuck, like I think Cope and I have probably gone over plenty of them over the last. We're getting close to. Yeah, I mean we're getting pretty close to 2 years. I mean, like here's one, right? Like one of his like famous sayings: "If you do what you've always done, you'll get what you've always gotten." Okay, yeah. Like this is literally the same shit that I think we've said like a million times. Like if you do the same shit just to keep doing the same shit, nothing changes. Like taking a chance on anything is better than just being committed to a fucking existence of shit that you don't like because you think you have to. You get what I'm saying? Like, I don't know, man. Like, I think at some level it starts to sound like hating, but here's my thing. Like, I feel like this shit is like so basic and so like necessary that everyone should have access to. I just can't see like trying to literally make yourself filthy fucking rich off of giving people like basic fucking advice to improve their life. I'm not saying we shouldn't like make a living, things like that. Like fuck, like dude, you could give all of this fucking information away for free and you could probably survive and do pretty damn well just selling merch off your fan base. You know what I'm saying? Like charging people all of this fucking money to quote unquote like fix their lives. That's just like where I'm like, dude, like, you should be wanting other people to fix their lives anyway. Like, you know what, man? Like, I have to, like, on some level believe that, like, if you legitimately help people, like, make their lives better, I mean, call it karma, whatever you want. But, I mean, I feel like what goes around comes around. And, like, helping people, you get some kind of help in return. I mean, nobody owes anybody anything, but I mean, I feel like it's all connected, right? Like what you put out into the world is what you get back. And
Mm.
yeah, I don't know. I
Yeah.
really like. I think 30 minutes is more than enough time we should have ever spent talking about him. But yeah, so
Oh, yeah. Fair enough. But yeah, look, like I said, for those that are interested in seeing the kind of manipulation that goes on, there, feel free to check it out. It's on Netflix, and even just things like the swelling music. Like real life doesn't have fucking swelling music. I'm sorry, but that's what that has. But yeah, anyway, we're going to leave it because it is what it is. But Patient Zero wanted me to explain the human condition briefly, so I just thought I'd touch on that just a little bit because it's I can understand it can be a little bit of a misconception, hard to understand it at times, because it is relevant to what we're discussing here. Well, we'll get to that in a minute. But okay, so the human condition, basically, what I'm outlining when I talk about it, and what most people understand in regards to that, psychologists and that kind of thing, is essentially there's an objective truth of reality, right? When we're talking about the human condition, it's the subjective perspective interacting with the objective, and the differences between um, something that you would do as a personal bias and something that you would like see someone else do and go like, yeah, that's a bit shithouse, isn't it? So say for instance, the one that I go to most out of anything, because it's I believe it's one of the things that's most relatable to, is like relationships, because most of us have relationships in some way, shape, or form. So when we look at other people in relationships and we can see, people that are not happy together, but they still try and work things out and that kind of, you're just like, dude, just fucking break up. Like, like they're no good for you, that kind of thing. You can see it from an outsider's perspective, looking in at an objective truth, because you're not emotionally attached and that kind of thing. You can look at it and go like, all right, well, there's something wrong here, right? So if I was in that situation, I wouldn't do that. Yet when we are in that situation, right, we give second chances, we keep going. Like we are confused when it comes to our own personal perspective and our own personal biases. And this is kind of like what we're getting at with the human condition. If we take that, we cut and we paste it and we put it in various other scenarios, whether it's work, any kind of relationship, our own personal thoughts of ourselves, there's a good number of constructs I could lean on, but essentially what I'm talking about when I'm speaking about the human condition, is essentially that ability to lie to ourselves, to be able to fool ourselves into thinking that we're special, we're different, that's not us, we don't do these things, yet we are doing these things all the time, but we're not actually aware of what it is that we're doing, or we may be aware of it, but we don't apply any kind of intervention. That's kind of like what I'm getting at when we're talking about the human condition. Now, relating that to this kind of thing, what we're getting at, I believe, at least anyway, is the fact that like we have the answers within ourselves to solve our own problems. Like we know, like when it comes to like say the example of the relationship, right? Like we continue to do things until we break, right? In that relationship, it's just like it's enough. You take the cheating, you take the lying, you take all the bits and pieces until it's too much. And when you look back on that relationship, like once you've actually broken up and you look back on that relationship, you're like, dude, man, why did I stay there for so long? Why did I do this shit for? Like, why did I, stay there kind of thing. Hindsight's 2020, as I like to say. And this is like that human condition that we're talking about, right? That essentially, when we're in that, we have a means of fooling ourselves or tricking ourselves. And the same thing with this, whether it's Tony Robbins or any other kind of guru or leader or people that claim that they're shamans, however you want to say it, and they kind of like take advantage of that situation. This is the kind of thing that we're talking about where essentially we allow ourselves to go through this. And what I believe and what we keep talking about here is recognition of our patterns and interventions is the only means of really taking control of our lives and making the differences that we seek from others. Because, like I said, like with Tony Robbins, even a psychologist, let's fuck Tony Robbins and gurus and shit off. Even just basic psychology, psychologists don't do shit. I'm just going to tell you straight up, they do nothing. Which sounds bad, right? But okay, they do something. What they do is they get you to question yourself. So when you have a particular thought, they challenge it in a way that is not aggressive, it's not judgmental, and they say, okay, well, explore that, like flesh it out. Don't just think it and be like, oh, I'm a shit cunt. That's all I'm ever going to be. Okay, let's talk about why do you think you're a shit cunt? Well, the thing is, like, I'm fucked up because this happened and I feel like crap. And okay, so why do you feel that makes you a shit cunt? Oh, well, because I can't do. Okay, so what can you do to change that? And then, like, through the talking backwards and forwards, all the psychologist is doing is asking you questions. The answers are within you. You're the one who's answering the questions. And by the time you walk out of that session, you're going, holy shit, right? Like, these thoughts that I had of me being a shit cunt and not being able to do anything and I'm worthless and all these, negative thoughts. Now that I've challenged them, right? Which because you've challenged them, like you yourself have challenged them, because the only thing the psychologist has done is framed questions that allow you to ask yourself about these things and really flesh it out. And you go, okay, well, maybe I'm not that much of a shit. I mean, there's people that are worse off than I am. There's people that do worse things than I do. I haven't, and you've actually just discovered yourself, right? The psychologist has done nothing. The guru's done nothing. All they've done is held up a mirror to you and gotten you to really question your beliefs. And that's kind of like what we're getting at here is the answers lie inside you. If you can find out how to question yourself, question your thoughts, question your feelings, question what it is that you're doing, and really find out who you are, what you think, what you feel. And when you start going down these paths, the path, you can apply interventions. So something I like to lean on as well is Clay's discussed, his weakness, his vice, if you will, when it comes to partners. I have also described a very similar kind of thing, which is different but still the same. And the two of us, we're not superhuman beings. We're not floating above everyone else. It's not that. But we've been through the process enough times and banged our head against the wall enough times to go like, I don't want, my head hurts. I don't want to keep doing this, right? How do I stop doing this? And we've applied intervention. So when we start going down this path, where myself, I start interacting with particular people, there's a bit of crazy coming out here. Some pretty crazy chick. I'm kind of into that, right? I go, hold on. You know where this road leads? It leads down to keyed cars. It leads to stalking. It leads to people breaking into your house. It leads to, suicide attempts and a whole bunch of crazy ass shit that you do not want to be part of, right? So before you go down the path, you apply an intervention. You go, okay, I understand these patterns. I know my thought process. I know my feelings. I know these kinds of things. So I'm going to stop myself from going down this road or path, as some people like to say, and stop myself from getting into a bunch of shit. That is a sense of awareness that is beyond the usual sheep brain, which is what these people want, like gurus and cult leaders, if you will, right? They want you to sort of like just hand over your brain, your autonomy, and just let them take control because, of course, they make a lot of money and a whole bunch of other benefits. But you don't think for yourself. And this isn't just like gurus. This is government systems, it's schooling systems, it's a whole bunch of different things. So becoming aware, self-aware, being able to apply these interventions is what is necessary for us to become autonomous, for us to find ourselves, for us to move forward, for us to get the things that we want out of life. But we don't do so. Why? Because we're trained to be this way. And it takes a lot of untraining, if you will, to pull yourself out of it. It takes a lot of fucking up. It takes a lot of bashing your head against the wall and saying, enough's enough, and shifting away from it. But that's not always an easy thing to do. Hence why people look for guidance, for help from whether it be crazy ass motherfucking guru selling you snake oil, or whether it's from a psychologist, who a genuinely accredited and all that kind of stuff psychologist who does the job properly and really does get you to question yourself and doesn't say, what would make you feel better? Buy a new car, have a child with your partner. These kinds of things. Like, you're not supposed to suggest things to do. You're not supposed to tell somebody to break up with their partner. Let's just say that, right? Tony Robbins. People come to these conclusions on their own, and if they want to execute on them, they want to apply the interventions, they need to be aware, they need to take responsibility for that action and just own it. Just own yourself and own what you do. That's what you need to do, but it ain't always easy.
Yeah, I would say, like, to me, the difference is instead of, like, going to somebody for, like, advice, you're going to somebody to dictate how you should be living your life. Like, I feel like these are two very different things, right? Like, I feel like the fundamental difference there is just almost, like, impossible to miss. But, that's my perspective, right? Little Scribe wants to talk about gravity, and like I'm sitting here like racking my brain, and you, you know, I mean,
Well,
my thing is like I can totally see gravity as like having to do with physics, etc. But like I don't know, I'm drawing a blank on gravity and philosophy. I mean, I just like I don't think it really like kind of like ties with the show. I mean, what do you think of?
mm. Well, how about in 25 minutes? Because usually what we do is we run the show for like an hour, then we open it up to the audience. Maybe during that time, you can have a bit of think about it. I think there's some things you can link to. I mean, we go from philosophy, psychology, science, right down that path, if you will, Izzy. And then we can sort of like wrap it up from there if you want. But something that I wanted to touch on, I've got a few notes here, was what I was saying before in regards to us being liars. Like, just, that's kind of like what we do. And it's something that I've discussed with Little Scrub as well. It's actually something that came out of one of our conversations, actually. Um, where essentially we're all liars. We're taught to be liars. We are conditioned to be liars. Um, and we can discuss that, and then what do you think? I mean, it's your show, right? So we can go down this path and finish this section here, and maybe in 25 minutes we can open up to the gravity thing if you want to explore that. How does that sound?
Yeah, I mean, I really don't even know where that. Yeah, I guess we'll figure it out. But like I said, I'm just like my brain isn't computing gravity and philosophy.
Yeah.
But
Well, I can put a few what do you call it? Plant a few seeds, if you will, and we'll see how the plants grow over some time.
word. Yeah, I mean,
How does that sound?
I think what you're saying though about like the whole lying thing. Uh, yeah, I mean, here's like the thing that like I came to with lying, right? And just to make it clear, like I think on I don't know, like whenever you say like compulsive liar, like I don't know if that's like a label I would have like ever ascribed to myself. But there before I started like embracing the more quote unquote radical honesty approach, I mean I very much was somebody that would like lie, embellish, and basically try to like sugarcoat shit, right? Like I would try to like create that picture that I'm somehow better than who I am, etc. And I would try to like give people that impression, like, ooh, I'm this way, and it's like, it's so great and blah blah blah. I mean, it's to me, it's very narcissistic, right? Because it's like that need to feel superior than what you actually are, and it's crazy because like until you can see it, it, it it's kind of like what you're saying about like it's you pretty much have to do it, right? Because like if you can't accept yourself and you can't you don't have like the self-esteem or anything to think that like other people could tolerate your existence for who you actually are, then yeah, I mean obviously you don't feel comfortable showing yourself to anybody, right? So it's yeah, I mean, I feel like the biggest problem with whenever you're existing like this, whenever you're like living in this like world of lies and illusions, is that you're really lying to yourself, and I think that's like the most detrimental thing, right? Because people come and go. Even if you lied to like everybody you ever met, odds are you could like go somewhere, start over again, and do it differently. But the thing is like you're constantly lying to yourself, right? And like what you're constantly doing is telling yourself I'm not good enough and I have to lie for these reasons, right? And it's like the more you internalize that, the more it just keeps self perpetuating, right? Because lies tend to snowball. Like telling somebody you have like a better job than you actually do, right? And then, like when they come to meet you, they're gonna like all the reasons like that what you said isn't gonna line up are gonna be going through your head. They're like, well, this car is sure not gonna put out that impression. So either I've got to lie about why I drive this car, or I gotta go borrow or like rent a car or something to give out that impression, or like these clothes certainly don't look like somebody that makes like 100K a year. It's like all these things compound and compound and compound. And it's funny because I was reading some posts on like the r/nice guys, r/nice girls, whatever, and it's just it's crazy. Like whenever you feel the need to like convince somebody else that you're such a nice person, odds are you're probably not. Like I don't know how else to put it, right? If you had to convince somebody that you're nice or you're like honest or you're like a genuine person, then think about what that really means, right? Like, why would you have to convince somebody of any of these things unless you aren't? So to me, instead of putting all that energy and like time and effort into convincing other people, well, why don't you just reverse that and put all that time, energy, and effort into convincing yourself and doing the work to make yourself that person that you think everybody else would, like and approve of, right? And see, here's the thing: like, if you come to the conclusion that you can't be whatever this is, then ultimately you have to become okay with whatever you are, right? And like this gets into accepting things we cannot change things we can, and yeah, I mean, like that ties into everything, right? Like your sexuality, your physical appearance, your interest. Like, sure, like there are things you can like consciously make an effort to change, right? Like, okay, well, maybe I should stop cursing so much at work, right? Because it's probably going to get me fired. Okay, like there are these things you can change. And then there's like, well, I probably need to like go completely change everything about my physical appearance. It's like you can do some stuff, in that direction, but at the end of the day, you're still going to be you, right? Like your whole mental process is still going to be the same. But yeah, like, are we all liars? I mean, I think there's a lot of them out there, but I mean, I also feel like getting some self acceptance and kind of like embracing the radical honesty thing is a good way to fix it.
Hmm. Well, yeah. Look, yeah, mate, you made some good points there. What I'm going to be getting at here in a minute is more the basis of how this whole thing starts, right? And some ordinary kinds of lies that we interact with on a daily basis. But before I do so, I'm going to chuck this in the chat here. We were talking about the distance between Australia and New Zealand. Now, Ron, I know it's not Freedom Eagles to the price of oil, but you can do the conversion yourself and figure out what that is on your own time. And I'm sure you can get the bot to figure it out for you. That's the distance the smoke travelled from Australia to New Zealand. Anyway, we'll continue here. So, in regards to being liars, now the thing is this starts from a very young age, and it's something that and this is how we accept it in sort of like ourselves, like how we justify it by our own means, our own thoughts, our own feelings. Right. So I'm going to chuck out a few things here, and yes, I'm going to offend. How dare I be so offensive? Let's just start with some simple ones. Right. Boys don't cry. Right. Boys don't cry. So when you feel the need to cry as a boy or a man, if you will, yes, it's man problems. I know they're not a real thing. We're supposed to hide our true emotions. We're supposed to bury that deep inside us. We're not allowed to cry. We're not allowed to show that, whether it's crying for happiness or crying for sadness, crying for hurt or anything else. Boys don't cry. Take it in. That's the world, right? Another one that likes to get out there is, don't let them see that they got to you. Right. So, someone's picking on you, whatever it is, don't show them that emotion. Hide it, bury it. Don't let people see it. Right? This is going to be a very offensive one to women. I'm sorry, I'm sexist. Let's talk about makeup, heels, push-up bras, hair extensions. Right? All this shit is fake as fuck. Right? And this is daily shit. Right? And this is accepted, daily accepted for people to do these things. Right? No problems. Okay, let's talk about children. Right? We've got Santa Claus, we've got the Easter Bunny, we've got the Tooth Fairy. Right? All these things don't fucking exist. Like, I'm just put your kids to bed. I probably should have said that a little bit earlier. But anyway, put your kids to bed. There's no Santa. There's no Easter Bunny. There's no Tooth Fairy. No Sandman. No Sandman that comes and spreads twinkle dust all over your face to make you go to sleep. The saying, fake it till you make it. Right? That's one I've discussed in the past. I know, Clay, you absolutely hate that saying, but it's out there. It exists. Okay, let's talk about white lies. White. Why they got to be white though? racist, fucking racist, right? But white lies, the things that we tell each other, to make each other feel better, and it doesn't matter. It's only a white lie, right? But all of these things put together throughout our existence from birth until now means that we are accepting this deception, right? This deception as part of normal human existence. It's okay to do these things. It's okay to lie to children about these beings that exist that are clearly not there. It's okay to present yourself in a particular way that is contrary to who you are as an individual. That's okay, right? No, it's not. Because the thing is, what we're found, psychologically speaking, is that psychological issues can present themselves in physical symptoms. So, one of the go-tos for me is LGBTQIA community, right? We've seen what happens to people that are sort of like hiding this, and not that I believe it is so, but let me air quotes this for you. The dirty little secret that you're part of the LGBTQIA community, which has shifted a bit, no worries. But previously, there was this big thing. Like if you were going to say like, oh, I'm part of the LGBTQIA community, you could be bashed, you could be chased. People would do some horrible fucking things, right? So we hide it. So we bury it. So we keep it deep down inside of us. And this is what I mean. Like it's kind of like we're trained to do these things, and on a normal everyday level, like you're talking there, Clay, where it's we lie to ourselves, we lie to other people, and these kinds of things. It's because we're trained to do so. It's because we're told it's acceptable to do so. This is how we sleep at night, right? Knowing that we've done these things. It's because, this is what we've got to do to survive, and this is how life works, and this is what we do, and this is it's not. Because at the end of the day, we have to live with ourselves, and a lot of us can't live with ourselves because of the things that we do. But we find ways, and this is where we're talking about lying to ourselves, which, let's be honest, lying to yourself is one of the worst things that you can do. It may make you feel better for a period of time. It may make you feel, air quotes, normal, et cetera, et cetera. But realistically, what we've got here is, essentially cognitive dissonance, right? We're holding two opposing thoughts in our minds. And we, whether we're part of a particular group, whether we have sexual orientation, or regardless of what it is that we're doing here, we feel fake. We feel like we're putting on a show. We feel these kinds of things. And as I said before, these feelings, we're supposed to bury them, hide them away. Don't let people see them because we're not supposed to. We're going to need to be polite. We need to do these things, et cetera, et cetera. So we end up fucking ourselves over. And like I said, these symptoms, it's called somatization for those that are curious. Feel free to look it up. Somatization. It's the physical sort of like expression of psychological issues, right? And it can be things as like rashes, dermatitis, losing hair. There's a whole bunch of things that can happen, right? When we do these things to ourselves. So this is why I'm sort of like pointing it out here and going, okay, well, we're saying that, at a psychological level, as psychologists are saying this is wrong, we shouldn't be doing this, right? But it's something that's part of like the human condition, if you will, something we've been part of from birth until now. And we think that we can just like, with a few words and a little abracadabra, we pull a rabbit out of a hat and everyone feels better. Like that's not what happens here, right? We need to look at these things at the core of the issue, the core of the issue, and really address that. Because if we continue to do these things, as far as, these sayings, the boys don't cry and white lies and fake it till you make it, and, telling kids about Santa and Easter Bunny and that kind of shit, like all we're doing is perpetuating the same issue. Like it just continues to go on and on and on. And there's going to be no intervention because essentially by the time we hit our 20s and 30s and that kind of thing, like our minds are pretty much formed. All of these things we've been going through since birth until that time, it's like trained us to be this way. So when we go to bed, right, and we fuck someone over, we cheated on someone, we stole, we lied, whatever we needed to do to get through the day, we find a means to justify it to ourselves, to tell ourselves it's okay. And, we needed to do that because that's what people do. That's what people want. And we lie to ourselves again so we can sleep at night and take it all up in the morning, right? So until we actually deal with the core issue, this thing's going to keep happening and people are still going to go through this. I just don't know how we're going to be able to tackle it when it's such a a big issue that starts from such a young age. To change that, I don't know how we're going to do it.
Yeah, I mean, I would say like that's something that I don't know, man. Like, dude, I don't think this is something that's ever gonna like 100% go away, right? Because you got to think of like there are some good aspects to this like line of thought, right? Like you're able to do things, like let's say like write fantasy novels or like create like all these like imaginary worlds and share them with people. So I mean like there are some, like positive aspects of this stuff. We got to keep that in mind. But yeah, I mean, I feel like whenever we start getting into things like Santa Claus and like the Easter Bunny and all this kind of stuff, I don't know. Personally, I don't really agree with it. But I mean, I think it's probably going to be like kind of weird being a parent for this reason, right? Because, like, what if you're like that one parent that doesn't like raise your kid to believe in all of this kind of shit, right? But whenever they go to school and like all the other kids believe in this shit, either they're gonna either get like some kind of like cognitive dissonance and wonder if you're lying, or they're going to be the asshole going around telling everybody else, Santa Claus don't exist, you dumbass, blah blah. So I mean, it's going to be kind of like interesting if you really think about it. But personally, like I don't know if I mean it's likely a question I'll never really have to face. But I mean, like I don't know. I don't see any benefit to like raising a kid believing that Santa Claus comes and like gives them presents every year. You know what I'm saying? Like I don't. I mean, like I don't see like what matters. Like how is this gonna like fix anything? Or, I mean, to me, like at some point they're gonna figure it out anyway, right? I mean, I don't think anybody like goes to adulthood and still believes Santa Claus is coming every year. But I mean, like, if they do, eventually whoever's playing this fucking game is going to die or something, and they're going to be like, well, I guess Santa Claus didn't come this year. I mean, like, you think eventually they'd figure it out, right?
Well, look, and this is something that I mentioned a few shows ago, where there was this kid in school. It was like a meme or something that I saw in regards to this, and it was like there was this kid at school when we were kids, and he came up with this crazy conspiracy that all the parents had banded together and created this story about Santa Claus coming, delivering presents, and all that kind of thing, and nobody told him anything. This kid just figured it out on his fucking own, right? And it's something that I sort of like came to myself. Where it's this big conspiracy theory and parents have just sort of like banded together, and it's kind of and the rest of the kids were like, "You crazy, man, like the Santa Claus is real." I saw him one time come and eat some cookies, and obviously it was parents dressed up and that kind of thing. But I seen him and I sat on his lap and I've got a photo with him, blah blah blah, blah, those kinds of things. But it turned out to be true. This conspiracy theory turned out to be conspiracy fact. And this is the thing, like what happens to the trust, right, between a child and parents when this thing happens, and just incidentally as well, it was like because it is the season to be jolly. So there's quite a few posts going around, and one of the posts that I saw on my Facebook, not that I post on Facebook, but I go in there to look at the classifieds and buy car bits and that kind of thing. And there was this friend of mine who was like, "Listen, it's the season and that kind of thing. And if you've told your kid that Santa doesn't exist, please tell them to not tell other kids who want to believe and that kind of stuff." They're fucking just perpetuating the goddamn issue. And I'm just like number one, thank fuck I'm not part of this shit because I'd be fucking tearing people apart. But yeah, I'm just looking at this going like, yeah, this is fucked up shit. And it reminded me of my story, right? Because I've got a story where I was living with my auntie at the time, and I was in my early teens, 13, 14, that kind of thing. And I was going through the whole rebellious stage. I was injecting the pot, right? I was doing the marijuana and these kinds of things, standard rebellion shit. And my guardians, because this was my auntie and uncle looking after me at the time. They were kind of like, we don't lie to you and blah blah blah. And I'm like, bullshit, bullshit. You fucking lie to me all the time. You told me about the Sandman. You told me about Santa. You told me about the Easter Bunny. You told me they were real. Blah, blah, blah. And she's like, that's different. It's not. You're not. There's a difference between going out and partying and stuff. Which, I mean, let's just be real. Let's just be real here, right? Okay, kids go through this shit. Like, I want to go to a party. Like, oh my god, right? There's going to be sex, drugs, and rock and roll. And the devil is going to take over. Like, yeah, okay. Look, I was a kid. I was trying to do kid things. And look, I ended up having like psychology and counseling sessions and that kind of thing, because my auntie thought I was like, going crazy and doing crazy shit. That psychologist is like, dude, he's a kid, right? This is what kids do, right? Like, they're gonna challenge you, right? Like, it is what it is, kind of thing. Like, I'm normal. Don't worry about it. How dare you? But look, at the time, like, I felt deeply betrayed by these stories that had been told, and I questioned every other story that came after I found out. Santa wasn't real, Easter Bunny wasn't real, Tooth Fairy wasn't real. That they'd ever told me. Like, am I fucking adopted? And you're just not telling me? Like what's going on here? Like, you've been lying to me for years. And I utilized that as kind of like a crutch, as kind of like a crowbar, if you will, to leverage a whole bunch of shit that I was doing and just going, well, you lied to me. You lied to me all the time. You lied to me since I was a kid. How dare you? I'm offended. Get woke. I'm disgusted. And and again, keeping in mind that I was a teen and my mind wasn't completely developed, I utilized it as a means for justifying my behavior and my not that I was a compulsive liar or anything like that, but I was just like, I'm going to go stay at my friend's place, and we went and we smoked some pot and we hung out at a lake with a waterfall and like all these kinds of things. And when we got caught, I was like, well, you fucking lied to me, right? So what we're doing is we're setting up these interactions, right? Because if you hadn't lied to your kid, right, they wouldn't have the ammunition to throw back with me. I'm sure other people have gone through this as well. They wouldn't have the ammunition to turn around and say, well, you lied to me. How dare you? Now I can lie to you for as long as I want to, because you've lied to me for like 13 years. So I can lie to you for 13 years again, the eye for the eye and all that kind of shit. Again, it's not the best way to do things. Eye for an eye makes everyone blind. But as a child, you don't have a fully developed brain. Therefore, it's okay. So we have to understand this is fucking people up. And particularly what you're saying there in regards to, what about the kids that, don't catch on, right? They're late. They're, like 16 years old and still believe in Santa Claus. Like, how do you tell? And the thing is, like, what we have to understand is, like, the further and further on this gets, the more detrimental it's going to be for the individual, the deeper an impact it's going to have on their existence. So, we're creating a lie and we're feeding it to our kids like, we shouldn't have done it in the first place, but really, you want to extend it for as long as you can? Like, dude, that's going to have some adverse effects to your relationship and to the mindset of the individual that you're lying to. It just ain't cool.
Yeah, I mean, I would say, like, the stuff like, the examples here are kind of, like, I think on the scale of, like, lies, pretty, I don't know, like, I think on some level I could say they're kind of, like, harmless, but, like, at the same time, I mean, the fact that they're, like, mass fucking illusions to where most of the world goes along with it, I think is part of the problem, right? But, I mean, dude, here's the shit that I think is, like, where we get really crazy with the lying, right? Like, whenever we start getting into, like, actual shit that matters, like we're going to deliver freedom to all the people in Afghanistan because, like, obviously the way they've been living their lives for the last, 2,000 plus years or whatever, just isn't working out, right? It's so terrible that we need to go over there and, like, free these people, right? And, like, look, like, I'm not going to pretend there's not, like, bad shit that goes on in the world, right? But, dude, like, whenever you look at, like, the news, propaganda, whatever you want to fucking call it in the U.S., it's like we always have this shit. It's like always something brewing about how all these other countries just, like what they're doing is they're creating reasons for us to go over there and invade these people, right? So, like, whatever the lies that are necessary to convince people and get, like, the support of the people behind it, like, this is what they're gonna spread. So, I mean, like, obviously, lies can be pretty fucking powerful, right? I mean, like, I think we have to at least accept that, right? Now, yeah, I mean, like, where do you draw that line? I mean, I don't know. Personally, like I said, I prefer to embrace radical honesty. We've been over this, but yeah, I mean, it definitely makes a lot of sense to me, right? Like, you shouldn't be lying to your kids and telling them lying is wrong, you know? Like, that's a great way to start getting some cognitive dissonance going. You know, mom says I can't lie, but wait, she lied to me. You know, it's like, yeah, I mean, just like in the grand scheme of things, I'm not as worried about, you know, like the Easter Bunny and Santa Claus as I am about the lies that we get for the justifications of a lot of the bullshit that goes on in our society, right? Like, what about like being raised Christian and you're getting taught that like all gay people go to hell, and you know, like, gay people having relationships or you know caring about members of the same sex is just like a fucking like slight against God, right? You know, like the old man in the clouds sitting up there looking down on you, just waiting to fuck your whole life up because you did this bad thing. I mean, dude, like to me, so much of the bullshit that like we these are the things that like I really struggle with, right? Because like these people fucking believe this shit. Like it's to them it's not a lie. You know, and I think that's like where the real problems come in, right? Like whenever fuck dude, like in the grand scheme of things, like I couldn't even I'm telling you, like having this conversation, there's probably somebody out there hearing this that thinks I'm a dumbass for even saying this kind of shit, right? Because like people are so fucking indoctrinated, right? But yeah, I mean, I think this kind of like ties back into what we were talking about at the beginning, right? Like if you take that fucking energy and time and effort of trying to like live up to other people's expectations and you fucking turn that shit inside and figure out, you know, your own beliefs, like how you feel about the stuff and not worry about what other people think and other people tell you how you have to live your life and all of this. But if you just put all that effort into working on yourself instead of trying to conform yourself to what other people say, I feel like on the whole it's a lot healthier. And yeah, I mean, like, if you feel like the lies that people have told you are egregious enough, then fucking cut them out of your life. Like, just have nothing to do with them anymore. And I mean, I don't know, in the grand scheme of things, fuck. I mean, like, my parents lied to me about Santa Claus and the Easter Bunny and the Tooth Fairy, you know? I mean, I don't really hold it against them, right? Like, these are, like, cultural norms. These are things they were raised with. Like, I get all of that. But yeah, like, they also told me things that I fucking vehemently disagree with, you know? Like these fuck dude, if I believed everything that like I was raised to believe, I would be racist as shit. I would totally have like all of these fucking like stereotypical issues against like people that are transgendered, people that are homosexual. I mean, like you gotta realize like sometimes your parents are just doing the best they can, but ultimately it's still all up to us to figure out our own shit, right? Like, can you really like blame them for lying if they actually believe the shit? Is I think you know kind of like where I'm going with this. And I mean, personally, I can't, right? Like, if this is what they were taught, if this is what they firmly believe, and they're not willing to second guess or like you know look into themselves and figure out this on their own shit, then who am I to fucking tell them they have to, right? Like it is what it is in that sense. But yeah, I mean, collectively, yeah, I'm of the opinion we shouldn't be lying to people.
Yeah, look, and look, another factor that we've got to take into consideration here is, as Elgaka was saying a little bit earlier in the comments, is you know the whole Christmas thing is to sell presents, right? That's what it all comes down to. You know, realistically, the whole hype behind the whole Christmas thing is a means of a third party trying to put out a particular theme, if you will, that is taken on by the populace, by uh, you know, society, and that gets passed on to the rest of the people. So society has to utilize this construct, whether it's Christmas, which is one of the things, Easter, like chocolates and Easter bunnies, like rabbits that fucking lay eggs. Like it's okay. The egg represents. Shut the fuck up, right? And we go on and on. Valentine's Day, like okay, another one, right? Again and again and again, we have all of these things that realistically, that if I love somebody, I love them 24/7 all the time. That is what it is. But I have one day to show it to them. Like fuck you. The same as like what you talk about religion here, where it comes down to having faith in God and a dude sitting in the cloud. Like whatever you believe is whatever you believe, and I got nothing against it. You're allowed to believe it, no problems, right? But I have to go down to church to talk to him, and I have to fucking I owe him money down there. I've got to put money into a little fuck you, man. I don't no, that's not how it fucking works, right? But somehow these corporations, these entities, they package these deals and they send them out there into the never land of the universe, and we just fucking lap it up. We just keep eating this thing up, and we have like every month we've got something that we need to prepare for, whether it's Valentine's Day, whether it's Easter, whether it's Christmas, whether it's anything. There's something that we need to pay for. And this is the kind of like the silent partner, if you will, to all of these lies and bullshits that we feed to each other and our kids and anyone else that will listen to us, is the fact that consumerism, buy stuff, buy this shit, and we're going to make sure that it works for as long as we need it to before we need to replace it, even if we have to update your data and make sure that your phone, which was perfectly working fine, good working order when we sold it to you, but we continue to apply bloatware until it no longer works. Planned obsolescence, now you have to buy a new one, etc., etc., etc. But we've packaged it in a way that you believe it yourself, and you tell your kids about it, and you tell your family about it, and you sell it for us. We don't have to sell it because the people are selling it for us. So to take this into consideration is like how much of this is influence from outside parties, whether it's government, whether it's religion, whether it's anything else, that forces this autonomy onto us. We force it onto our children, and they grow up believing that is normal. That is how it's supposed to be. Like it just sort of like blows the mind a little bit that these are things that we do not actually want, but we've been convinced to do, to partake in, to tell lies because it's for the kids. Think of the kids. It's for society. Like, oh, we're gonna go do Christmas carols together. Like, fuck off, man. Like, you're part of the problem, right? So where I'm getting at here with the lies and that kind of thing is, I think the intervention starts at the core, right? It starts at the start. It's not that we're trying to treat the symptoms, we're trying to treat the illness. But right now, what we're looking at is like, oh, there's this end value stuff. When we're talking about, the lies that we tell to go to war, politicians sell us bullshit and we buy it up. Yeah, that's the end stuff. That's because we've been living with this since birth. Right? So when we grow up as an adult, we continue to believe the same bullshit. It's the same process. We've been brainwashed, the indoctrination camp, all of that has taken place from birth until we're air quotes adults, which depends on where you're at, 18, 21, okay. But essentially when we're adults, like it's too late. It's too late. It's already done. The damage is done. And there's nothing we can do to change. Well, there is things that we can do. I mean, you can't always get woke. I don't want to leave this doomy Armageddon, end of days type of mentality. But it's very difficult. Like Clay, you've got to admit yourself, trying to shift who you are right now, right? Teaching an old dog new tricks is very fucking difficult. But if this was something that the interventions were placed from birth, right? So when kids were born, there was none of this bullshit about fucking Santa Claus and this kind of stuff and tooth fairies and just it is what it is kind of mentality. Teach people about the world, how it works. It's unfair. Justice system's bullshit. Government doesn't care about you, all that kind of stuff. The kind of adults that we have would not fall for the kind of bullshit. This politician saying, I'm going to get in there and I'm going to change everything. You watch. I'm going to make the world a better place. And they get into office and they don't do it. They're going to be like, listen, motherfucker, you came up and you said this is what you wrote. You stood in front of a billboard saying all the things you were going to change. You didn't change nothing. All the things you said you weren't going to change, you changed all of that shit. What the fuck is wrong with you? Get the fuck out of here. All right? We would not be the same kind of people that we are. But what I'm getting at is I think it's at the core. Like it means us changing, like admitting that we're fucked. Like right now as adults, right? We've been through the system, we're fucked, right? Doesn't mean we have to fuck up the next generation, right? We don't have to do that. we can change things by not changing ourselves, but changing the way that we've been taught. So, like, it's kind of like if you've been bullied, if you've been treated like crap as a kid, right? You've been through this heartache, you feel like shit all the time. Instead of looking out and going, well, I went through that kind of thing, and my kids are going to go through the same kind of thing, and I'm going to, like, no, don't do that. But a lot of times we do go through that. I mean, I've got a story of a mate who went through an apprenticeship, and in his first year as an apprentice, he was treated like crap. They threw him into a large garbage bin, dumpster, right? So a dumpster bin, and they put another dumpster on top of it, so he couldn't get out. They left him in there for the whole day. He had to sit there with off food and terrible stuff the whole day. No one gave a shit about him, right? And when he got out, he was really upset and he was crying. I interacted with him. He was my mate, and he came to my place and he was in tears and he was like broken. He was a broken human being, right? Now, when he became a second year apprentice, the first years came in, and you know what he did? He chucked another kid in the fucking bin, and they put another bin on fucking top of it. I'm like, dude, do you remember what that was like? He's like, yeah, but that's what we do, right? That's what we do, right? Apprentices have to go through. I went through it, so all the apprentices have to go through the same shit. Like, dude, you are perpetuating the issue, right? You got fucked up over that shit. Yeah, but it happened to me, therefore it has to happen to other people. This mentality is what we need to put aside. We need to understand that continuing the process is only going to make things be exactly the same. If we want changes, we need to actually make changes. And what that means is looking at it and going, okay, I may have been fucked over. I may have been treated like shit, but I'm not going to do that because I know what it feels like. I know it feels terrible and it's crap, but I'm not going to do it to other people. So my intervention starts here. Not for me, but for other people. So when I see that happening, I'm going to say something. When I see that going on, I'm going to stop that. Unfortunately, that's not how a lot of people think. So, like I said, it comes down to not treating the symptoms, but the illness itself. And the interventions come down to not what people think they should be as far as, like perpetuating the issue, but like really thinking about it and going like, no, that's not what my kids are going to go through. And when it comes to human beings, like, if someone who's been bullied or attacked or molested and that kind of thing, the general mental capacity is like, that's never going to happen to my kids, right? Unfortunately, it tends to stop there, right? With those kinds of things. When it comes to the smaller, like, trickle issues of, things that we've discussed here about lying and that kind of thing, it's like, well, it wasn't that bad. I mean, like, we just lied to the kids about Santa Claus. It's a good thing, kids get together and they sing songs and stuff. Like, it's really good. Like, no, it's not. No, it's not. You're creating the same kind of dynamic. The depression, the anxiety, the shit that you go through, you're just instilling that in your children. So when they get to be your age, they're going to be in the same position as you. You want to make changes? Start now.
Yeah, Cope, I think this would probably be a good time to go ahead and tell everyone they owe us like $10,000 each.
Yeah, well, it is part of the cult culture, so, it was in a small print when we first started broadcasting. So, that's what it adds up to now.
Yeah, about $10,000 for all this life advice. You're now officially in our cult, and we're gonna also need you to walk over these coals. Yeah, Cope.
You need to make it sound good, dude. Look, like, if you want to get into it, right? Listen, ladies and gentlemen, what we have here is a fantastic opportunity for you to create a better life for yourself in the future. Don't you want that for yourself? Don't you want that for your kids? Think about the future. You're going to be fantastic. You're going to be rich. You're going to be famous. Think about it. Visualize it. Look into the future. That's going to be you. But you need to be part of the platinum class, and that's what we're creating today. For those special few that are still with us tonight, a lot of people have left because they don't have the skills that they need to be part of this team. You are part of this team because you're still here. You are listening to us. The platinum class is where it's at. And for now, like right now, special deal. You sign up right now, $10,000 all you pay. For everyone else, they're going to pay $15,000, $20,000. But wait, there's more, right? We'll continue to broadcast to you, and we will even speak to you in DMs. We'll give you personal chats. If you sign up right now, sign on the dotted line, sign your life away, it's $10,000 a month only a month, right? And you'll have special limited access to Claiborne and myself and our special skills.
And don't get this confused with the Jerry Vanfield Club either.
No, of course not. Of course not. That dude's a fake.
Yeah,
We've got like paperwork that says we're capable of doing these things. I've got a degree. I'm special. You need to listen to me. I'm a scientist.
And we'll tell you who all the other we'll tell you who all the snake oil salesmen are, so you don't fall for any of the bullshit. Okay, just get those checks in the mail, and we'll set you on the right path.
Damn straight, damn straight. And just so you know, right, I'm more qualified than Dr. Phil, right? Dr. Phil doesn't have a lot of qualifications, so that's got to tell you a lot, right? He's got his own TV show and stuff like that. Look at what he does, and I'm more qualified than that guy, right? Therefore, you know you're getting your money's worth. You know you're getting your money's worth. Sign up right now. Contact me. He'll give you the details.
So like this part of me is kind of like relieved that like Little Scribe went to go play in the water or whatever, because now we don't have to talk about gravity. Like I don't know, man. Like I'm sitting here like. Look, I'm all for getting into metaphysics, but like, I don't know where actual physics, like where, like I don't know. We've talked about pretty much anything and everything on this show, so I'm not saying it won't ever come up, but yeah.
Well, it has come up in the past. In the past, Izzy.
The past doesn't exist. I don't know what you're talking about. It's always right now.
Well, it is what it is. But I thought you'd be of the mind of like, well, she's not here. Let's talk about it, and we can say, well, you asked for it. We talked about it. You weren't here. You need to stick around and pay your $10,000 and get on board with the platinum class.
Fuck it. Okay, Cope. Throw out your seeds. Let's see where this goes.
Well, look, I was basically going to say that when it comes down to like gravity, it's one of those things where it can be contested in a particular way as far as like prove it exists, right? Like, well, I hold something up and I let go and it falls down, that kind of thing. But there's plenty of people out there, if you do your research, that'll say that gravity is not something that can be proven scientifically, and that is kind of like that first seed that you plant and you go like, whoa, right? Because it is kind of true in some sense. I mean, like, you can prove it, but how do you prove it?
Well, yeah, there's also, I guess you could get into the fact that, like, just because something is larger doesn't mean it has the same density, right? But, yeah, I mean, like, if we're looking at something like Jupiter, right? Like, as big as Jupiter looks, technically, if Jupiter is like what you would consider like a failed star, if people don't know this. But here's the thing: if Jupiter actually, for it to be capable of like igniting and turning into a star, it would actually have to be a lot smaller, right? Because the amount of density that would have to be compacted into it would actually use the quote unquote gravity to kind of like collapse it more in on itself, and that density is what's required to create the ignition of a star. But yeah, no, I mean, dude, like, fuck, dude, but can we prove air exists, Cope? I mean, like there's arguably, like if we want to get into the you can't see it, it's not real. Yeah, I mean, but.
Well, it's semantics, right? Because the thing is like I said, the whole principle of science and how it works is pretty clear and cut, right? There's a ruler. You go out there, you measure shit. Now, if you can't see it, you can't measure it, and you can't repeat it, it's not science. And that seems pretty clean cut. Unfortunately, when the human condition gets involved, there's a whole bunch of loopholes that we can get through to make these kinds of assertions and technically be correct. The same as like evolution, right? Like I rag on evolution a bit, quite a bit actually. But it is the best explanation that we have, right? Creationists and all that kind of shit aside, right? Scientifically speaking, it is the best model that we have available to explain what has happened to create the existence that we're in now as far as human beings go, right? And anything else, right? Plants and animals and that kind of shit.
Well, Cope, if
Unfortunately,
you guys didn't have your anti-gravity boots, how would you fucking cling to the bottom of the world?
well, it's the spin that's put on it, right? Because the spin is what keeps us on, right? Um, but yeah, look, the thing is, like, evolution is pseudoscience, technically, right? If we look at it, and I'm sure you can look it up on the interwebs, on the YouTubes, if you will, where you can actually look at people that have interviewed, you know, people that have studied this for a long time, right? People that they're genuine, they're actual scientists, right? Not like you and me and everyone else, Mr. McGee. Yeah, and they dedicated their lives to these kinds of things. And you give them like the principles of science, and you go, well, it's not scientific, is it? It's pseudoscience. It's and they go like, well, yeah, right. They have to concede because they are actual scientists, right, who don't bullshit. And this is what I'm saying: the difference between utilizing science as a tool and a weapon, right? Because people who utilize it as a weapon will basically go in there and go like, "Well, I'm going to prove you wrong. I'm right. You're wrong. You're dumb. I'm smart. Ha ha ha. Now let's go on our way." Whereas like scientists are kind of like, well, the distinction between Dunning Kruger and the imposter effect, right? Because the more that you find out about something, the more you realize you don't know about these things. Whereas someone who doesn't know much about things, they do a quick scan on the Google, get a few facts from armright.com so they can spit them up at people that that believe something different, they're bigoted. That's the kind of people that we're talking about here. So there's a distinction between the two. Now, a scientist is just like, well, look, it is what it is, right? Science is, the best that we can do with what we've got right now. There is no unequivocal truth, and we're on a quest to continue trying to find that truth. So when you ask any scientist, any real scientist, these kinds of questions, they're like, well, yeah, like, but what's the better model, right? Which we don't have, and I'll concede that we do not have a better model for evolution, besides evolution. But the fact is that it does not comply with our understanding of what science is. It never did, and it cannot, because we cannot observe something for a million years to watch for evolution to take place. It's just, you can't do it. We can guess because we have like skulls from particular breeds of monkeys turning into man. There's the missing link, la 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 la. But realistically, we don't have the ability to go like, well, we can observe mankind for the next million years and watch them evolve to something else, or any other species for that matter. So essentially, it's pseudoscience. But the fact that it is pseudoscience does not mean that it's not the best model that we have. Very similar to these kinds of arguments where it comes down to consciousness is another good one that we've discussed multiple times. And even like the flat earth, like when it comes to like the flat earth, there's a few things that flat earthers say that is legitimate, right? When they turn around and say, we don't have a photo, right, a picture, if you will, of the earth in its entirety. It is a composite, right? And that's true, right? Because we can't get back far enough to take a photo of the whole damn thing in one shot. So what we do is we take a whole bunch of little photos and we kind of like stitch them together to make a shot of the entire planet Earth. Now, that's true. But what flat earthers do is they say, because it's not a complete picture, it's a fake picture. They take the word composite, right, to be fake. Where it's not fake. It's something. Composite is just like things stitched together, for layman's terms. So if we understand what composite means and go, okay, well, yeah, well, do you really want to pay for a camera to go X amount of distance away from the Earth so it can take a picture of the whole thing, or you just want to do like the Google Earth thing? Like, you would have seen it plenty of times, I'm sure, right? You look on Google Earth and you have a look around, right? And you see where these two pictures, satellite pictures, have been stitched together, and shit doesn't look right. Shit doesn't look right. Right? One thing, like one picture's one color, the other one's another color. Maybe there's 4 pictures put together and it looks like a UFO in the middle. Like there's anomalies, if you will. Like, yeah, because motherfucker, they're not going to send a satellite that far back to take a picture of the whole fucking thing. Like, relax. There's no conspiracy here. It just is what it is. But unfortunately, these semantics, if you will, is the fuel to the fire for these kinds of arguments for gravity not really being something that exists, and etc. etc. So as much as I can understand where they're coming from, I can also and I take it on board. I don't just dismiss it as bullshit. Right? It's just kind of, okay, let's listen to what you got to say. Composite images, blah blah blah. I say, okay, well, I understand that, but do you understand this? Right? And that's where you see whether they have the bigotry, right, coming through. Because if they can't comprehend it, then they're beyond help. Right? Same on the other side when we go too far into the sciences and we end up with a dogmatic view of science. We end up with scientism, and that's the polar opposites here. And this is where the fence is a good place to be, right in the middle, so you can see both sides, you can hear both arguments, you take the good points, you comprehend things, you process it, and you go like, okay, well, I have a better understanding of the world by listening to the crazy motherfuckers that are conspiracy theorists and the crazy motherfuckers that are scientism. You find somewhere in the middle that makes sense.
So, Cope, I don't even know. I don't even know how to transition into what I'm about to say. But
just cut and paste.
Okay. I'd like to preface this by saying it's Julia's fault, but apparently Julia found the most amazing subreddit, and I'm gonna actually have to shout out a subreddit here.
Giddy up. Let's do it.
I want everyone to, after the show, spend some time just exploring this quality, top-notch subreddit. And then what I really want you to do is wrap your mind around the fact that they probably have more active users than Steemit.
Yeah.
But yeah, no.
Are we going to talk about Steemit now? Is that what you want to do? You're going to transition and talking about Steemit? Where's LP? Get him in here.
I do agree with you, right? I feel like you have to be willing to see both sides of these things. You have to be willing to not just accept things at face value, right? Here's one of the reasons why I don't have a lot of trouble accepting things like gravity and that the Earth is a sphere. There are some pretty fucking basic tests that you can do to kind of figure out some of the fundamental underlying things of physics, right? You can get a half full water bottle, tie a string to it, and spin it around in a circle, and you can see what centrifugal force does, right? You can spin water around from side to side until it starts to make a vortex, right? You can do certain things to test and see how force, transitions and kind of creates these things, right? If the Earth didn't spin, right, dude, it's crazy to me, right? Some of this stuff, it seems so basic, but dude, we really do have people that still believe there's a flat Earth, right? Okay, yeah. Here's the thing, right? A sphere, a globe, a ball, these can spin, these can rotate, right? Whenever you take something that's flat, it would tumble. It doesn't compute in my head, right? But then there's also the fact of how a sphere, for the most part, would evenly distribute the gravity, right? If it was flat, we would definitely have a lot less gravity because the mass would not be as thick wherever we're standing on. But also, let's say the Earth was not a sphere or a globe or a ball or oblate spheroid, whatever you want to call it, we would have differing levels of gravity, right? So say you go over to Australia and your gravity would be one, measurement, or you went over to South America, it would be slightly different, right? There would be no general, I guess you could say consistency. But yeah, I'm all for not just believing everything you're taught in a book, but I do totally think that there are some basic scientific tests that you can do yourself and figure out that some of this stuff's not complete bullshit,
Well, I think one of the things that springs to mind, and correct me if I'm wrong here, because I could be wrong. This is a long time ago I heard this. Um, that when they used to make cannonballs a long time ago, when they first started making these bloody things, they made these huge towers and they used to just drop the things from the top, like as a liquid form. And during the process of falling, they would turn into a ball. Is that correct? It's a long time that I heard this, so I could be wrong. I could be stupid, but I'm pretty sure that's how they used to make cannonballs. Yes, no,
Okay,
maybe.
okay, wait. Repeat. Like, I think I missed something in there. You're talking about dropping liquid and it turns into a ball?
Yeah, something along those lines. It's
Well,
it's one of those things I didn't really listen to in school, and I'm pretty sure I heard it in school, and I was like, oh fucking, I don't care. Like, when am I going to use this? Right?
well, I mean, I think it would depend on, like, how much liquid you dropped and how you dropped it. But yeah, like, if you throw a cup of water across the room, it's obviously not going to turn into a ball. And if you pour it slowly, it'll be a steady stream. But liquid's a good way to do a lot of tests with things, right? Because most of our world, most of our bodies are made up of water. So, yeah, like, I think testing things with water is a pretty, like, basic idea. But, yeah, like, you can do tests with water and you can see, like, how the science applies, and then you can extrapolate that onto a lot larger scale. And yeah, I mean, think about it like this: if the world was flat, our oceans would probably be functioning a little bit differently, don't you think? Like, what about the tides when the moon pulls on them? Like, I mean, these things are like measurable, right? Like, you can tell. Like, I'm not saying just accept all this stuff at face value, right? But what I'm saying is, like, you can tell, like, when the moon gets to a certain position, it has a certain pull on the water. Like, these things exist. Like, you can go stand on a beach and watch it happen. Like, just stand on a beach for, like, 12 hours straight and watch how the tide works, right? Like, if you do that for a month, you can see how, like, the changes in the moon affect this. Like, it's you know what I'm saying? Like, it's not like I don't know, man. Like, I totally get the skepticism, right? Like, there's a lot of bullshit out there that we've kind of like just get thrown at us, but there's also a lot of stuff that like it's not all made up. It's not all fantasy, fucking mind controlled bullshit. I mean, I think just like with everything, there's some truth, there's some fiction, and there's generally an agenda behind some of it.
Well, look, the thing that I'll say in regards to this is that we need these kinds of differing opinions. A lot of people will turn around and say, for instance, for flat earthers, oh, they're dumb, that's stupid, there's no point even doing that, that's fucking dumb, and etc., etc., this ridiculing, if you will, of a opinion that is differing from the standard sciences, if you will, a bigotry, if you will. And this is what I'm saying. Like, realistically, when we look at like science, and again, I'm going back to scientists, real scientists. If you ask any real scientist what it's about, they will tell you that I don't have the answer. This is the best that we can do with the information that we have right here and now. But that could change tomorrow, in a couple of minutes. It could change in 50 years or 100 years, in a millennia from now. That could change, because that's what science is. It's a continuous evolution of understanding of what the fuck we are going through. Because, like I tend to say multiple times, we're just a bunch of talking monkeys clinging to a rock, hurtling through space with no idea what the fuck is going on or what we're doing, why we're here. So we're trying to figure that out, and that's what science is at the forefront of that. Unfortunately, we don't have a very sophisticated tool; we have a very simple tool to do so. So I think that these, challenging perspectives, thoughts, opinions, actually help progress the sciences, because as ridiculous as it may be, I mean, again, another thing that I tend to say quite a bit is, if your kid comes up to you and says, "Oh, there's a monster in my closet," right? Now, you could be like, "Ah, stupid kid, doesn't know what's going on, brain isn't fully developed, go to bed, stupid kid, monsters, it's all your imagination," right? But there could be a person that has climbed in, they're hiding from the cops or some shit. They've climbed in through the window and they're hiding in the fucking closet. You don't know. So what you should do, right, regardless of whether you believe something or you don't believe something, what you should do is investigate, regardless of what it is. Regardless of what, like if someone turns around and says to you, there's a ghost in my house, right? Oh, ghosts aren't real. That's just dumb. Like, why do you believe in ghosts? It's dumb, right? But what you can do is you can go and you can investigate utilizing scientific methods, that kind of thing. And if you do so, you can come up with some answers, some conclusions. Well, that banging that you hear is actually a tree that is too close to your house, and the branches, when the wind blows, bang against your roof. That's what makes you think there's someone up in your attic making some noises, some scary ghost motherfucker. And we've discovered it. So what we do is we lop the branch off, right? There's no more noise. Job done. Investigated, busted, no ghost, right? But let's just say on the odd occasion when you're investigating these kinds of things, there is no answer for the banging that's coming from the roof. There is no answer for the sounds, the ooh that's coming from the basement, the attic, or anywhere else from the inside of your walls. At the same time, you could find, a voice recorder or something like that, whatever it is. But we don't know what's going on unless we investigate it, and that's the whole thing of science. The actual motto of science is "see for yourself." It's a Latin translation. But that's what it is. So what it comes down to is whenever anything presents itself, regardless of how ridiculous it may sound, regardless, what you should do as a scientist is investigate it, right? Utilize a scientific method, create a means of measuring whatever it is, and set out and try to measure these things, even if you can't actually do so. And leaning on string theory and a whole bunch of other these sciences that kind of like rely on stuff that you can't actually see, feel, touch, measure in any way, shape, or form. What we do is we set out to try and measure these things regardless of whether we can see them or not. And a lot of times what we find is these things, these air quotes, things that don't exist. In time, we find a means of measuring these things. One of the best examples of this is, say, like germ theory, where, essentially when it was put forward, there was no means of understanding, no means of observing, right? These germs, these things that are not visible to the eye, that are creating all this havoc for humanity. But in time, we found a means of being able to do so. We created the tools, we created the technology, and now, like, to not believe in germs is pretty ridiculous, right? It's not scientific, mate, right? By the same token, I believe that some of these anomalies in time will develop the tools to be able to see these things, to measure these things, and we'll go like, well, yeah, the thing is, like, say for instance, and I'm not saying that ghosts is a thing, right? But let's just say ghosts, right? Because it has been throughout our history that people have been talking about spirits and things visiting them, etc., etc. So I will just use that as an example because it's one of those ridiculous things that we just go like, that's not real. It's hocus pocus. It's woo woo. It's not real. Maybe in time we will develop the kinds of tools that we need to be able to perceive beyond our senses, beyond our understanding, and be able to see these beings, right, in some way, shape, or form. We'll go like, well, yeah, like for thousands of years we believed that spirits were just human beings that had died, and that was their air quotes ghost. But what we understand now is that it's actually interdimensional beings that are beyond our capacity to observe them with our very limited human senses. And what they are is actually interdimensional beings that are far superior in capabilities than us, and they can actually transcend the void between their reality and our reality, blah, 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 etc., etc., etc. Like whatever the fuck it is. Like I'm just making it up as we go along here, right? But there will be some means of explanation for these phenomena, for this anomaly. And once we understand it, it will become common knowledge. And again, I lean on the Kuhnian cycle, which I will look up and post in the chat here. That kind of like explains the way that science works is a consistent evolution of understanding. And once we comprehend that, no matter what is put in front of you, whether it's ghosts, whether it's boogeymen in closets, whether it's germ theory or anything else, you just go, okay, let's investigate. I'm not going to ridicule it. I'm not going to cast it aside as being ridiculous. Let's investigate. And if I find something, or if we find something as a community, as scientists, then we'll put that forward. And if not, well, we present that too. We investigated, we didn't find anything, but non-conclusive, because Absence of evidence is not evidence of absence, to quote Carl Sagan, one of the greatest scientists known to man.
Yeah, and look, I mean, I have no problem getting into the invisible, unseen, abstract shit. I don't know. I guess to me, it's just kind of weird getting into things that I think, fuck, I mean, maybe it shouldn't be, right? But, just because something's generally accepted doesn't mean we have to accept it at face value, right? But yeah, I mean, generally, like whenever I want to start getting into the science, I'm always more interested in getting into like metaphysics, like quantum entanglement, law of attraction. Like these are the things that like fascinate me. I mean, it doesn't mean there's anything else is like less valid, right? But yeah, I mean, I don't know, that one kind of threw me for a loop. And it's like, let's talk about gravity. I mean, I'd be more about like, well, let's talk about the double slit experiment and understanding the concept of quantum entanglement and how it works, and getting into like the theories behind it, right? Like you could literally have quantum entangled particles on opposite sides of the universe, and still, like, it doesn't matter. I mean, time is relative, right? But they're still going to come back and complete their cycles, right? Like this is how quantum entanglement works. Like they don't become unbonded, right? But yeah, I don't know. I mean, these are the things that I find more interesting, getting into metaphysics. But yeah, I mean, I guess we shouldn't like shy away from quantum physics. It's just like I feel like the stuff that like we normally talk about is much more like outside of like general discussion, right? And I mean, I feel like you can find tons and tons and tons of opinions about something like gravity, but man, whenever you start like literally trying to like learn about some of this other stuff, I mean, it's it's crazy, right? Because it's not like that it's really new, but it's still like so outside of the realm of things that we can test, right? Like we're just getting into I guess you could say, like the area of science where we can actually prove things, like with the double slit experiment, and observation creates reality, right? And when we can start like learning about things like quantum entanglement, we can start learning about retrocausality. We can start doing the experiments to prove that these things exist. Like this is where I get really interested, right? Because this is where we start tying so much of the philosophy to science. And yeah, like I said, I probably shouldn't have like that kind of like reaction when somebody like let's talk about the speed of light. I mean, here's the thing though, we don't know what the speed of light is. We know relative to it, but we cannot get an exact measurement of it, right? Because we don't have the tools to actually measure the speed of light. The way we've kind of got an idea for the speed of light is we measure it relative to other things. But yeah, like so much of like our science is based on theories, right? Like because who even knows if we'll ever have the technology to measure some of this stuff. But yeah, like whenever we get into things like quantifying emotions, like dude, this is the shit that I would love to see like psychology develop into, right? Like being able to like quantify things, like what Stace was saying earlier with like schizophrenia, right? Like how do we quantify this? Like, how do we figure out like what part of each, personality is in control? Like how do we figure out the triggers? How do we figure out like the depth of the triggers, right? Like things like this. Or how do we figure out how much we love someone, right? Like how can we quantify this? Like how much love do you feel for this person? I mean, personally, I think like on some level it's kind of irrelevant, right? I think it's more one of those like you do or you don't things. But I feel like getting into the realm of quantifying some of this stuff is how you prove that it actually exists. And there's plenty of people out there that don't believe things like love exists, right? But how do you prove this to somebody that can't see it, touch it, smell it, feel it, quantify it? And how can you it's like there's the different colors of love, right? Like different shades. Like there's like the familial love, there's the romantic love, there's like the love of your people. It's like there's so many different things to these abstract, unquantifiable, things we can't. I've already told, like, last time or the time before, I think we talked about, like, how do I even know that these things exist, right? Like, I assess the world. I think of, would the world still function the exact same with or without this thing? And if the answer is no, then that's enough for me to tell me that it exists, like, even if we can't quantify it, even if we can't fully comprehend it or understand it, it's still exists, right? And to me, like, that's the basic test. But yeah, I mean, kind of like what you're talking about earlier. Like, there's so many people that are like, you can't see it, you can't quantify it, it doesn't exist. Like, just ignore it, pretend like that. It's bullshit, right? It's just like a cop out.
Yeah, well, the thing is, like, when it comes to that, again, like what we are talking about panpsychism a little bit on the last show, is like consciousness is one of those things that it kind of like says a big fuck you to science, because it's like, I exist, find me, motherfucker, and we can't do it utilizing science. And it kind of like leaves that understanding, that opening. This is why a lot of people are a little bit uncomfortable with consciousness and the discussion of consciousness, because it can't be quantified, it can't be measured. Science doesn't really know how to explain it in any way, shape, or form that has some kind of meaning, some kind of value, besides just going like, well, yeah, it's there. That's about as far as what science can do. Um, but in regards to what you're saying a little bit earlier, to a sense of something, try to explain to someone who has lost their sense of smell or has never had a sense of smell, like the smell of something. It's impossible. It's ineffable. It's unfathomable, right? It's something that's beyond their understanding because they do not have the tools necessary to comprehend what it is that is before them. And this is something that we need to understand as humans, as a society, that there are things beyond our understanding. Again, I'll lean on the visual spectrum. What we can actually see between the infrared and ultraviolet is very it's a sliver between the two, and unfortunately, it is not a spectrum; it is a continuum. It's something that continues on forever. And we just don't have the ability to comprehend what is beyond our own visual spectrum unless we utilize some tools. Now, we've designed these tools to be able to see beyond these spectrums that we can see within, which again is very minuscule compared to like what we're looking at when we look at the continuum of it. So we need to understand that there are going to be things well beyond our understanding, beyond our senses, and just accept it. Right? There's shit that we don't know, and it's something that goes against human nature. But dialing back a little bit further to something you were saying in regards to philosophy, science, and that kind of thing, something that I've heard quite a few scientists say, this is on the science side of things, not on the philosophy side of things or the psychology side of things, which I understand some people, Ron, even though you're not here, tend to think that there's a soft science and a hard science. And I just say there's science. The rest is kind of like semantics. Like the fact is that science is statistics, right? Whatever it is that you're measuring, it gets quantified in some way, shape, or form when you process it through statistics. So science is statistics. Hard science or soft science is the perspective, the subjective, and that's where it gets a bit fuzzy. So I'll leave that to the side and just say science is science, right? But a lot of these scientists, hard science, for those that are actually measuring, whether it's hard or soft science. Nothing sexual there, by the way. They say that philosophy is a precursor, a prerequisite, if you will, for science, right? Which means, and if we think about this logically, right, you have to think about something before you do it, right? So if we're designing an experiment, we're thinking of like what it is that we can actually do to measure something in the world that hasn't been measured before, to add to the scientific body of knowledge. It means we need to think about it. And if we're thinking about it, we need to comprehend what it is that we're trying to put together. And this is the whole thing of philosophy, is thinking about thinking. And, and again, adding some psychology in there as well on the cognitive side of things. This is what we do, right? So it needs to be thought about before we physically do it. Once it's physically done and measured and weighed, and we can have some kind of meaning attached to the numbers that we process through science, through the statistical model, then we can say it's science, but it all starts with thinking. Therefore, philosophy plays a greater part than what we lean on. So people that are turning around and say, oh, philosophy, psychology, all this thinking stuff, stupid, soft science is stupid. It's like, that's where it starts, mate. It all starts with thinking about shit and then doing some shit. But the thinking comes first. So, how can you discount these kinds of things? So, back to the gravity argument. I see the whole gravity, does gravity exist? How do you prove gravity? Blah, blah, etc. It's kind of like the whole holographic universe thing. That's what I believe they are leaning on with the gravity, the argument for gravity being questionable, right? It falls into that area of the holographic universe. If there's a bunch of zeros and ones that are dictating how we experience ourselves, our lives, etc., while we're here on this plane of existence, it comes down to the physics engine, if you will. So imagine this is like Grand Theft Auto 1, 2, 3, San Andreas, whatever you like, right? There is a bunch of zeros and ones that dictate how things work in this virtual reality, in this sandbox video game. Now, if we apply that to our existence here and say, well, this is a simulation theory, holographic universe, however you want to put it, they kind of like mix up depending on who you ask. What we can say is that gravity, technically, in these realms that we have created, so when you're playing the video game, is gravity really a thing in that world? Well, yeah, I mean, there's a physics engine, and it gives you a kind of gravity while you're in the game, and it looks pretty real, right? But it's not real. It's simulated. It's doesn't really exist, and that's kind of like where I believe, at least anyway, my understanding of I'm like, well, yeah, I can understand that. As far as saying gravity isn't real flat out, well, first we have to prove whether we're in a holographic universe and some kind of simulation, matrix, etc. Once we get beyond that, then let's talk about whether gravity is actually, air quotes, real. But first, let's settle some other things before we get into that, right?
Word. Yeah, and First Amendment's just reminded me. I still think we totally need to get that episode going, where, I don't know how, but just collectively, everybody that shows up to the show just eats 5 grams of mushrooms, before the show starts, or drops maybe 5 hits of LSD or something, and we just. Basically we all just dissolve reality together and, just break this whole thing, right? We all collectively merge back to the mothership.
I think that's a bit full on. I mean, yeah, because there's a particular thing that happens when you break through in psychedelics, and you don't really want to be dealing with the air quotes real world while you're doing so. So as much as I'm like, well, yeah, I mean, if you really want to, you can do that. I'm like, well, that's not really.
But Cope, I don't believe in the real world.
No, well, you can not believe in it as much as you want to. But what I'm saying is, do you really want to try and find yourself while trying to run a show, while having some kind of boundaries? Because the thing is, that the show has to be done at this time. It starts here, finishes here. You need to do your intro. You need to play the fucking intro song. You need to, there's all these rules and regulations, man. The whole point of doing this thing is to fucking shed it. Shed that like a skin, like a snake shedding its skin and moving out into the never land of the universe, having an experience, and then coming back and putting the skin back on if you so choose to, or donning the new skin and just being like, fuck you, everyone else. This is my skin now. There's a thing that happens. So, for me, I think the maximum that I would do is maybe, smoke a little cig of weed, get a little bit high, which, puts yourself in a semi, because it is a psychedelic still. I mean, that's what weed is, right? So it gives you just that little bit of a taste and allows your mind to expand your mind, Craig, right? And have that moment without getting too far into a realm where you're talking to, reptilian overlords that are telling you about the Anunnaki coming back to take their gold at some point, and you must be prepared to do battle with these beings from other realms. There's some crazy shit that goes on here, man, and I don't think that it will make for a good show, because you need to travel inwards and forget all this outside world bullshit.
Maybe it would just make us redefine the concept of a quote-unquote good show, right? I don't know, dude. I think it would be crazy as fuck. But either way, whether it's a show or not, like we should all get together and do like a meetup. But like the meetup is just all of us tripping fucking balls. Like I think that would be amazing. Yeah, like
you want to get high?
dude, what if we like, you know what? This is where science could come in, Cope. We create a giant machine, right? And it just like burns like a metric fuck ton of DMT and like just smokes out in like this fucking room to where we all just like, like lose our fucking minds. And then, yeah, I don't know. Maybe somebody's like on.
You don't need a metric ton for that. You just need the right the right way to do so. You need the formula, right, to be able to do it. Because the thing is, like, it's all about method, right? And if you listen to Hits from the Bong a while ago, they talked about, don't get me wrong, it's not a new method. The thing is, like, the method is what it comes down to. If you know how to take in and get the most out of whatever substance that you're interacting with, then that's great. But I see a lot of people, like, let's say they load up a bowl, they take a hit, right, and they pull it in, they exhale it straight away. I'm like, dude, like all this smoke that's coming out, you're fucking wasting it, bro. Like, dude, like, hold that shit in, right? You gotta keep taking it in, right? You just hold it in, right? And then when you exhale, nothing comes out. Like, that's when you know that you've taken all your shit, right? And it's a very similar thing with, smoked dimethyltryptamine, at least anyway. If you want to go through the ayahuasca, that's another thing completely, going through the endocrine system. But as far as like smoking goes, I can take like a half bowl, if you will, and break through and there's people that have done like 3 or 4 hits, right? And they're like, man, I got told you had to do 3 hits, and I'm watching them puff. They're bum puffing this fucking thing. I'm like, dude, it comes down to method. If you actually pay attention, right, you will utilize that substance, and you got to cherish it. You got to cherish it because there's plant life that gave its life for you to have this experience. So if you utilize it in that sense and you just go, okay, well, this is sacred, have that mentality going into it, you'll make sure that you don't waste anything or as little as possible. And that's where you have like these breakthrough moments. And I'm more than willing to share it with people. If people want to know how, give me a DM. I'll tell you the way to do it. It's very easy, very easy. But like I said, what it comes down to is understanding what's going on, understanding the material, and respecting it. Period.
Word. Yeah, I don't know. I think moral of the story is I'm always just down to go on that ride. But here
Izzy, look, Izzy plants the people too. All right, relax.
Whoa. Did Azaria just assume plants' gender?
How dare you? That's offensive. Even down under.
Okay, so we're here again. Somehow 2 hours has magically gone by, and yeah, we talked about some stuff.
Is the little scribe back? Did she miss it? She missed the gravity talk.
Dude, little scribe's in the shower, thinking about the first half of the show, I guess. I don't know. But, yeah, shamalama ding dong buzzwords and blah bitty blah blah. Peace, love, chicken grease. Yeah.
Yeah, well, dingo baby, shrimp on a barbie, all that kind of stuff. Science is a method. Utilize it, understand it. Don't be misguided by false idols and demi-sex gods from hell. All right, don't listen to Tony Robbins. Anyway, much love, copious hugs in all your directions, and thanks for listening to my crazy rambling, and we'll catch you next time. So the question is, who are we going to drag